Hello and welcome back, RP fam. First of all, if you are watching this video, you are likely in your fantasy championship game, so congratulations. In today's video, I am running over every single position. I'm giving you tiers. I am trying to bring the most up-to-date and relevant information to help you guys make the best decisions possible. This is it. Every decision we make this week, we will remember for eternity, whether we come out on top or we can't get it done. That's not going to happen because I am here after a week full of grinding to help you guys out, make those great decisions, and win a title. We are going to start with defenses, move to kickers. I'm doing top 16s for both of those. Then to quarterbacks, where I have a top 25. That's for those in 2 quarterback and super flex leagues to help you out. I go deep with some information that will help you make critical decisions. At running back and wide receiver, I have a top 36. Those are, of course, broken into tiers. And then finally, I have tight ends to finish off today's video, the top 16 as usual. Ask questions, drop comments down below. I love the engagement. Make sure you like the video if you enjoy the content today, and please subscribe to Relentless Press as well. We are moving so close to 1,000 subscribers. Would love to have you along for the journey with us if you have not already done so. Without any further ado, I am going to begin with defenses. My first tier, number 1 team, the San Francisco 49ers. Great matchup against Washington. All they do is turn the ball over. The Buffalo Bills are at 2. I think they keep it rolling at home against New England. My second tier starts with the LA Rams. They go on the road to a New York Giants team that cannot figure out who their quarterback is going to be. Can't seem to put together a quarter or 2 of solid football, let alone a full game. Number 4, the Chicago Bears. They continue to play inspired ball over the last 5. They've surrendered 20 points or less in all but 1 game in that stretch. Chicago is going to make life difficult on Taylor Heineke in this game. They're going to post a 5th top 7 finish over their last 6 contests. Tier 3 begins with the Kansas City Chiefs. I like them to bounce back against Cincinnati. Monster game there. The Denver Broncos are in at 6. They should post a great outing against LA. They are dangerously thin at playmaker. Keenan Allen's probably not going to play. Joshua Palmer is a question mark. Might leave Quentin Johnston as the wide receiver 1. He hasn't been able to be a wide receiver 3 this year, so lots of flashing lights for the Chargers. I like the Broncos against them this week. The Eagles are next at 7 in a must-dominate game against Arizona. They have to play a good game of football with how they've looked. Tier 4 begins with the Colts against Vegas. I know they let us down last week. The Raiders' offense does not scare me. They look like they will be without Josh Jacobs. I know Zamir White is playing well. I still like the Colts in this spot. Speaking of defenses that give you a little heartburn if you're playing them, the Jacksonville Jaguars against Carolina. Any defense against the Panthers has been a good start this year. However, the Jags have been absolutely horrendous, so there was risk even in that top 10 play. Dallas Cowboys are next, and my 11th ranked defense are the Baltimore Ravens. They aren't my favorite start of the week, but they did just destroy the 49ers. They put up 15 points last week as a defense. That will work. Baltimore still has a solid floor here. I think the ceiling shrinks a little bit because they face Miami, the league's best offense. My last tier starts with the Houston Texans, and then I have the Atlanta Falcons as my lucky number 13 against the Bears. The Seahawks against Pittsburgh and Mason Rudolph are in at 14. At 15, I have the Raiders against the Colts. Tend to turn the ball over a bit. Finally, my last defense in play for Week 17 are the Green Bay Packers on the road against Minnesota. Look, the Vikings have looked on and off great and horrible as an offense over the past month. There's a lot of risk in that play, but it could hit if things pan out. Kickers are up next, where I have Brandon Aubrey behind that awesome Cowboys offense in at 1. Jake Elliott, great matchup against Arizona, I have at 2. Jake Moody is at 3. Not super concerned against Washington. They probably get up big early in this game, kick a couple field goals late to pad the stats. Same thing goes here for Tyler Bass at 4. He's going to get multiple opportunities against New England. The Bills continue to fight for that playoff spot. My second tier starts with Justin Tucker against Miami, and I have Lucas Havlicek up at 6 against the Giants. Rams offense has been on fire. No reason to think that the Giants defense, which has been fumbling all season, slows them down. Jason Sanders is in at 7, and I have Daniel Carlson flying up at 8, and that matchup against the Colts is ripe for the picking, and that is why I like him. Same game, Matt Gay is next at 9. He's put up top 10 performances in 3 straight games after falling on his face the previous week. He just did that against the Falcons, so I like his chances to bounce back against Vegas. Rounding out my top 10 is Cairo Santos. He has made 17 field goals over his last 6 games, and Atlanta is a top 5 matchup. Sometimes fantasy football is easy. This is the case here. Kaimi Fairbairn is next at 11 against Tennessee, and I have Chase McLaughlin at 12 against New Orleans. The last player in this tier is Younghoe Koo against Chicago. My fourth and final tier goes Jason Myers, Harrison Butker, and Cameron Dicker. I do not trust the Chiefs' offense with plenty of good reasons. They have looked really pitiful over the last month plus. Cameron Dicker had a great performance last week. Like I said, those offensive weapons for Los Angeles are all banged up. Gives me trepidation to start him yet again here with confidence. Now on to quarterbacks, where I start with Jalen Hurts. This is a perfect get-right opportunity for him, and I think he takes advantage of it against Arizona. My second quarterback is Dak Prescott. He is also set up for a massive get-right game in this one. Detroit has given up the 2nd highest yards per attempt, as well as the 8th highest passer rating since back in week 11. Prescott will bring the backpack this week and help carry owners to a championship. My third ranked player is Brock Purdy. I know he crushed us last week against Baltimore, but Washington is a complete opposite. They are worse in the NFL in almost every statistical passing category. Brock Purdy will absolutely feast. Josh Allen is at 4. He has struggled in the air as of late, but he continues to crush as the #1 quarterback in fantasy by virtue of his ground game. The Patriots are elite, top tier usually, but they can be had through the air as of late, and Allen is going to leverage his arm to post a 2nd straight top 5 outing. He demolishes New England. My 5th ranked quarterback is Lamar Jackson. Tough matchup and all, I do not care, especially after what we witnessed from Lamar against San Francisco. My 2nd tier, welcome back. It starts with CJ Stroud. Fresh off of 2 missed games in a row for that concussion, he looks good to go, and he walks into a layup matchup against the Titans. I don't care who is injured in the wide receiver room for Houston, Stroud is going to pick apart this secondary. My 7th ranked quarterback is Matthew Stafford. Talk about someone who has been on fire over the last month plus. Stafford continues to roll against the Giants. Kyler Murray overcame a pretty difficult matchup last week. He posted a QB1 finish. He will do so again against Philadelphia, who has been a laughingstock as far as being able to stop quarterbacks. They give up top 5 numbers to the position, and Murray will have no trouble taking advantage of it. My 9th ranked quarterback is Patrick Mahomes against Cincinnati. Yes, I have to tell you to start this week because he has been horrible over the last 4 or 5 games. This matchup against Cincinnati is awesome, and I think and believe and hope for owners who have him that he bounces back against the Bengals. Rounding out my top 10 is Justin Fields. He likely struggles once again through the air against Atlanta. They've allowed the 4th lowest passer rating, the 6th lowest yards per attempt, and the lowest completion percentage over expectation since back in week 11. Now, thankfully, Fields' legs do not care about the Falcons' ability to stop the pass. Over his last 5 starts, he's averaging 60 rushing yards per game. He does have a scary floor, but he gets that top 10 upside as usual as well. My third tier begins with Jared Goff, who has been an underrated producer all year. He is the overall quarterback 12 in fantasy land. The Godfather ranks 3rd in highly accurate throw rate, 7th in passer rating, and 11th in yards per attempt. The Cowboys as a secondary has dropped off as of late. That pass rush, of course, remains elite, so they will create issues. But I think a dome game here, combined with what these defenses have shown as of late, means a lot of points are scored in this matchup. At 12 and 13, I have quarterbacks in the same game. Derek Carr, great matchup against Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield, slightly worse one against the Saints, but this could be a shootout for the NFC North title. I know that I have preached Tampa cannot stop passers. That will be the case again here. Baker is going to have to keep up against the Saints. That is why I believe both are excellent starts. At 14 is Jordan Love. He gets a good matchup against a Vikings defense that has shown cracks in the last couple of weeks. My fourth tier begins with Geno Smith. A little bit of risk here against Pittsburgh, but he certainly could surprise, and I do like his upside. Speaking of which, my Sweet 16 is Jaren Hall. He offers upside with his legs, and he gets this incredible matchup against the helpless Pack. Since week 11, Green Bay has surrendered the 3rd most yards per attempt and passing yardage per game. They've also surrendered the 2nd most passing scores and the 4th highest completion percentage over expectation. So yes, there is of course risk in this game that he gets benched. But if he plays the whole game, he could crush. This is not a homer pick. The reward is a top 8 ceiling. My 17th ranked quarterback is Bryce Young. He is a legit quarterback 2 option for the first time for me all season long. The Jaguars have embarrassed themselves since back in week 12. They allow the 6th highest yards per attempt and passing scores as well. They've also surrendered the 3rd highest CPOE, or completion percentage over expected. There's a path for a 2nd straight quarterback 1 finish for the former #1 overall pick. At 18, I have Gardner Minshew. He has just 2 quarterback 1 finishes over the last 2 months, and he's gone for over 260 passing yards just 1 time in that span. Vegas is beatable, and it does look like Michael Pittman Jr. is coming back for the Colts, but I am looking elsewhere for options if I can help it. The mustache madness seems to be disappearing. At 19, I have Tua Tagovailoa. He has been the quarterback 23, quarterback 23, and quarterback 22 over the last 3 weeks. This matchup with Baltimore is brutal. They allow the 2nd fewest points per game to quarterbacks. So for me, with the title on the line, I am not betting against those numbers. Trevor Lawrence falls. He's at 20. He is a sit candidate even if he goes against the Panthers. His throwing shoulder is in question, so I suggest moving him to the bench and looking for somebody else who can help propel you to a championship. At 21 is Jarrett Stidham. I actually love him in this matchup, but the question marks around Courtland Sutton, as well as they probably don't need to do a ton of passing to beat the Chargers, means there is a low floor for Stidham. Jake Browning is the beginning of my 5th tier, and at 23, I have Tyrod Taylor. He could post a decent day led by volume against a really good Rams defense. Taylor is averaging 25 rushing yards per in his 2 full starts, and the Rams have given up the 5th most passing yards and passing scores since back in week 11. My 24th ranked quarterback is Easton Stick, and the last quarterback I have ranked in week 17 is Aiden O'Connell. On to running backs, where I begin with Christian McCaffrey, and at 2 I have Kyren Williams against the Giants. He will continue to post league-winning numbers. He ranks 2nd in fantasy points per game, 1st in snap share, and 5th in opportunity share. Since arriving back from his injury, he is averaging over 25 touches and 135 total yards. He gets the Giants here, who have given up the 3rd highest explosive run rate and also have the 2nd lowest stuff rate in their last 6 games. Kyren is going to carry managers with their season on the line. At 3, I have Rachaad White, and my 4th ranked running back is Jahmyr Gibbs. Guy has been unstoppable regardless of the matchup. My 2nd tier starts with Alvin Kamara. He is the RB3 in fantasy points per game, averaging 20 touches and 90 total yards per. As usual, it is going to be the great volume against the Bucs that carries him through. They've allowed the 4th highest rushing touchdown rate, as well as stuffing opponents at a bottom 10 rate in their last 6 games. Alvin is going to post a 5th straight top 15 finish since back in week 10. Next up at 6 is DeAndre Swift. My 7th ranked back for now is Josh Jacobs. He is a must start if he goes against Indy, but that is looking less and less likely. Now, if Zamir White were to start instead of him, you need to dial him up as a high-end running back too. Since week 11, the Colts have allowed the 12th highest explosive run rate as well as the 7th most missed tackles per attempt. That means that White is going to be able to showcase that excellent ability to take advantage of plus matchups. He's got back-to-back top 15 finishes since Jacobs has been out. He will crush if given the opportunity. Down at 8 is Travis Etienne, and in at 9 is Bijan Robinson. He is going to punish a Chicago defense that has been the league's worst against pass-catching backs. The Bears surrender the most receiving yards as well as the highest yards per reception to rushers. That gives Robinson a ton of upside in a sneaky good matchup. My 10th ranked back is Raheem Mostert. He will continue to score tutties. And at 11, I have Joe Mixon against Kansas City. My last RB1, welcome to the show, James Conner. First time he's been a top 12 play, and it's that Philadelphia defense that does it. Tier 4, the tail of the tape, is good running backs in tough matchups. I start at 13 with Kenneth Walker, and I have Saquon Barkley directly after him. At 15 is Jonathan Taylor. He is going to need all the volume against this really difficult matchup in Vegas. Over the last 6 weeks, the Raiders have been a brick wall, surrendering the 6th lowest rushing touchdown rate and the lowest missed tackle rate in the league. The chosen one is going to have to work for everything he gets here. James Cook is in at 16, and at 17 I have Derrick Henry, 20 touches, 10 total yards the last time he played Houston. Probably can't bench him, but you might want to consider it. My 5th tier begins with Ty Chandler. He should crush in this awesome matchup. And I have Ezekiel Elliott, who hopefully takes advantage of a good matchup with Buffalo. Tony Pollard is at 20 against Detroit, and at 21 is Devin Singletary against Tennessee. He posted 170 total yards on 30 touches in week 15 against this defense. At 22 is Chuba Hubbard. He is a lock to see massive usage in a desperate offense, but the production and efficiency from him could be questionable. Chuba is a zone runner, and the Jags are weak against gap concepts. I am still going to buy the volume here, but understand that the ceiling is going to shrink for him. My 6th tier starts with Aaron Jones, and at 24 I have Austin Eckler. At 25 is Devon Achane. He is trending up, and he saw his highest snap share last week since back in week 13 in that big victory against Dallas. Achane is going to see an increased workload because Jalen Waddle is out as well, and he is always a threat to take one to the house. This guy ranks 1st in explosive run rate, 2nd in missed tackles forced per attempt, and 1st in yards after contact per attempt. He is a worthy dice roll that offers a week winning ceiling. David Montgomery is at 26, and I have Najee Harris rounding out this tier. Tier 7 begins with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. CEH might be the last back standing for Kansas City. He hops a tier if Isaiah Pacheco ends up sitting, but he becomes a risky flex play if Pacheco plays. In at number 29 is Javonte Williams, and I have Gus Edwards rounding out my top 30. He gets a brutal matchup here against Miami. They're surrendering bottom 5 numbers in rushing yards and explosive run rate as well over the last half of the season. The Gus bust is going to need a touchdown to hit because he's averaging just 12.4 touches and 57 total yards per game. Jalen Waddle is in at 31, and my 8th and final tier goes Zach Charbonnet, Tyler Algier, Antonio Gibson, Khalil Herbert, and Tyjae Spears. This tier is filled with desperation plays that I do not recommend. If you are looking for flex plays in this range, check out my wideouts and play them for the upside. Quick reminder to like the video if you haven't done so already and subscribe to Relentless Press to keep us moving forward. That is greatly appreciated. Wide receivers begin with CeeDee Lamb at 1. Great matchup against the Lions. At 2, the guy who just shredded the Lions is Justin Jefferson. He is going to follow up last week's monster showing with another epic performance here against Green Bay. The Pack have been shredded through the air over the last 2. They surrendered nearly 700 passing yards and 6 passing scores to a guy named Baker Mayfield and Bryce Young. And then after doing that, they suspended their #1 cover corner. Jet could crack 200 yards easily against this squad and not break a sweat. AJ Brown is my 3rd ranked receiver, and at 4 I have Tyreek Hill, who looks like he will go against Baltimore. Deebo Samuel rounds out my top 5. He should be the #1 target option for San Francisco. And at 6 is Mike Evans. Without any Marshawn Lattimore to shadow him, he explodes against the Saints. Tier 2 begins with Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the most consistent producers this season, and I have Chris Olave as wide receiver 8. He gutted through an ankle injury last week, and he's probably going to go again in this week in a must-win against the Bucs. Tampa Bay has given up the 4th most points per game to the position this season. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are rounding out my top 10 this week. They should each post strong outings against the Giants. They have earned lineup lock status. At 11 is Rashee Rice against Cincinnati. My last wide receiver 1 this week is Michael Pittman Jr., who looks good to return after a brutal hit to the head a couple of weeks ago. At 13 is Nico Collins, and my 3rd tier begins with Davante Adams. He will respond after demolishing Souls in a forgettable Week 16. The Colts have deployed 3 cover at the highest rate in the NFL since Week 10, and Adams has been unstoppable against it as of late. Keep the faith in him this week and enjoy the payoff. At 15, it is Brandon Ayuk, and I have Devontae Smith up next at 16. DJ Moore is also dealing with an ankle injury. It has clearly hampered him over the past couple of weeks. A matchup with stud corner AJ Terrell is likely coming as well, so temper expectations for DJ and hope that the volume he sees here is enough. My 4th tier begins with DeAndre Hopkins. Great matchup against Houston. And at 19, I have T. Higgins, who would skyrocket to a smash start tier 2 play if L'Jarius Sneed is out for the Chiefs. Now, if Sneed does suit up, Higgy takes on a ton of risk against one of the best shadow corners in the entire league. At 20 is DK Metcalf. He popped up midweek with a back injury that is never anything to play with. So if he goes, he's a decent option against Joey Porter Jr., who will likely shadow cover him. But if he is out, I think JSN makes a high-end flex play. At 21, I have Stephon Diggs, who has been abysmal since Week 10. He's posted sub-40 finishes in every contest. The looks are going to be there. It is fair to question if the production is going to follow. You know that I hate sitting studs, but if you are considering here, no, you are not crazy. You are just braver than I am. I would still start Diggsy. My 5th tier starts with Chris Godwin. He's at least 11 targets and 50+ yards in 3 straight, so he's going to offer an excellent floor for managers here. The ceiling does rise against the Saints, but I think that Evans is that main go-to and #1. George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, both for Pittsburgh, round out my wide receiver 2 options this week, and I have Calvin Ridley at 25 against Carolina. Romeo Doubs is my favorite Packer wideout this week. He is also potentially the healthiest of the bunch. My 6th tier starts with Noah Brown, and I have Tyler Lockett after him. Rashid Shaheed, who I had as a pickup in my waiver wire video, is in at 29. Rounding out my top 30 is Brandon Cooks. He has big time upside in a great matchup against the Lions, but he also has just a pair of catches in 3 straight games, so the risk is obvious. Cooks offers a massive ceiling, but there is also no floor for him. He could win you your week, and he might also put up a stat line that makes you question what the heck you were thinking about. At 31, I have KJ Osborne. That is if Alexander Mattison doesn't go. And at 32 is Gabe Davis against New England. Darius Slayton is in at 33, and I have Adam Thielen at 34. He bounced back last week as expected, posted a strong game against the Packers, and after going for 94 yards against them, he could certainly threaten triple digits here against the Jaguars. Jaden Reed is at 35, but you have to check to make sure that he is available to go. And then at 36, I have Terry McLaurin in a very tough matchup against San Francisco. We finally made it to tight ends. I begin with Travis Kelce, and at number 2, it is Trey McBride against Philly. My third-ranked tight end is Sam Laporta. He fell off a cliff against the Vikings, but he should respond with a solid performance against Dallas. Sammy Ballgame owns the Cowboys single high looks. He ranks 5th in fantasy points per route run and 15th in yards per route run against it, and that is among over 165 qualifying tight ends and wide receivers. Do not worry about the dud last week from Laporta. He has your back and will crush. George Kittle is in at 4, and my second tier starts with Isaiah Likely. He is the tight end 5 in fantasy since taking over that starting role for the Ravens. With Zay Flowers looking doubtful to play here, the usage for Likely will skyrocket. I think he posts a third top 5 showing in his last 4. Jake Ferguson is next at 6 against Detroit, and I have Dallas Goedert in at 7. He should continue to roll against Arizona. They've given up the 4th highest yards per reception to tight ends. The Cardinals also just got destroyed by Cole Kmet. He had 107 yards on just 5 targets, and Goddard could easily match that production. Evan Ingram is next at 8, and I have Kyle Pitts headlining my 4th tier. He has a shot at putting up a 3rd tight end 1 finish over his last 4 games. The volume has not been ideal, but what else is new in Atlanta's passing attack? Chicago allows the 3rd most fantasy points per game and also the 2nd most receiving scores to the position. So Pitts may have waited until the final week in our championships to offer owners some confidence, but I suppose it is better late than never. At 10, I have Gerald Everett in a great matchup against the Broncos, and my 11th ranked tight end is Tucker Kraft. My final tier goes Darren Waller and Cole Kmet at 13. Now make sure Waller plays because he has been banged up and missed practice this week. Kmet, I think, is a solid matchup. If he can go, he is dealing with a knee injury, and if he sits, then backup Robert Tonyan is still a decent dart throw. It is all about the matchups here. Atlanta allows the 5th most receiving yards and also the 7th most fantasy points to tight ends. Dalton Kincaid falls to 14 this week, and I have Chigoziem Okonkwo in that great matchup against Houston. Pat Freiermuth is the final tight end that I am considering in Week 17. And with that, I will call it a day. I really appreciate you guys sticking around, and I really hope that I offered some information that is going to help you make better decisions. Please make sure you drop any questions or comments down below. I love the engagement. Crush the like button if you have not done so already, and subscribe to Relentless Press as well. That would be greatly appreciated. Good luck to you guys in a critical Week 17. I will have content out next week for those of you who have championships or still playing Week 18. First and foremost, get that fixed. But I will be here to support you. I just might adjust the content a little bit. Good luck to you in your championships. Go get that dub. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Abrium Opats, and I will see you next week.